Welcome to the show. Today's topic: careful who you listen to, or careful whom you listen to, for all those grammatical experts. Just before I get started or going down any rabbit holes, this is not a diss, a direct attack on anyone. And if some examples seem like someone, keep it to yourself. No, not keep it to yourself. I'm not trying to call out anyone or put anyone in a negative aspect while doing uh, this episode when I'm talking to about careful whom you listen to. And even in the this little dialogue that I'm going, it's going more towards like people you would see on social media, on YouTube, on the internet, whether you call them like relationship life coaches, any kind of coaches, regarding financial coaches, dating coaches, like I said, life coaches, breakup and relationship coaches. I know I'm skewing it to that, but we could add family, friends, girlfriends, kids. We could just keep on adding stuff on there, even though for the most part, when you hear it, it's in a negative tone, or at least when you hear it on YouTube or on social media, it's in a negative tone. You hear them like calling each other out. And again, I'm not here to negate any one of those many people that involved in that kind of coaching or lifestyle, because again, I believe that any message can resonate with someone, just because there's enough ears for everyone, right? There's enough ears for stuff to get regurgitated around. So, like, why should you be careful whom you listen to? Right now, again, I'm sure everyone has had an experience where someone, maybe you were a kid and your friend told you, "Hey, don't worry, let's make a ramp and jump it." And you listened to him, and then you ended up, breaking your leg, spraining your leg, hurting, a body part, because you listened to your best friend, and he told you it would have been dope and awesome if you jumped this, ramp, or build this ramp and then jump it, and you followed his advice. And then you go into teenage years, and the same repetitive action happens then. And then you go into adulthood, and then you go throughout adulthood, and you keep on listening we keep on listening to the wrong people. I mean, a lot of times when I think back, and just a little digression or a little disclaimer, I guess it all depends on your upbringing and how strong-minded you were. And I know my own faults. I know where I'm weak-minded, or that I have been for a vast part of my have been one of those susceptible, where it's not that I have a weak mind, is that I don't have that a lot of experience. So then, or at least in those days, I didn't have that much of experience due through certain circumstances that happen in my life that leads many young men into certain avenues, so of experimenting. So me being in East Los Angeles, was easy to be influenced by some of the gang members, some of the stuff that was happening around the neighborhood. So, and a lot of, people were influenced by that and listened to a bunch of them. And sadly, a bunch of them are no longer here because they were not, obviously careful who they listened to and what they did. But again, just in my own experiences, people that I looked up to, even though wrongly, because maybe they weren't the best example or someone to look up to, a role model, when they told me to do something, because I had this false illusion, this false idealization of this person, I went ahead and did it. And luckily for me, that it never led to something traumatic, something dumb, where I would have been, sitting in a jail cell somewhere for with a life sentence, because I did something stupid when I was, a young kid. So that's why it's always good to have a reminder as to, hey, careful who you listen to. And for the most part, we do. But what do we do, right? When someone tells us, hey, I would be careful with that person. you take it as, man, they don't really know. I could take care of myself, and I'm a good judge of character, and we kind of bypass these people. And again, we all know those stories where people, are envious and negative and will do some of that stuff, just to cause drama. But we blow it up like that's the norm. That is such a small sample size, or just a small number, that's the case. And we built this whole, I don't want to say industry, but these whole theories around certain stuff that doesn't have to have all this convoluted extra meat, even though it sounds good, but it really doesn't need it when we are hearing it or saying, like, whom should we listen to? I mean, the answer is out there. You shouldn't listen to anyone, and you should listen to yourself. You should try to put yourself in the center of it, and then kind of lead have your yourself is the middle, and then have that lead you as to what the norm is, that people tell us what to do, and then we do it. Kind of a, not a proactive approach, but more of a reactive approach to this stuff. And we tend to let outside forces, like our boss, like our family, like our girlfriend, like some of these influencers, depending on what's going on in our life, whether it be financial, in our life, and dating and relationships, and so on and so or etc. And it kind of tend and we're just like, what is that? We're just going with the wind. We don't have any directions. There's no one holding the wheel. We're just being pushed all over, and we end up wasting resources, energy, tears, months, years of our lives. Gray hairs. We become toxic. We change to something we might not even recognize. We become bitter, when we show up to work, and just because you need to pay bills and all that stuff, or you need to put food on the table, which you should. I'm not saying that, but because someone told you an idea that you have to stick it out, because now you have a kid and a wife, and you can't look anymore because you know how to do this job, and it pays you okay money, but you want to do more, but you don't want to risk not having anything, and that fear gets you stuck for 10, 20, 30, 40 years at the same job, and you never fully expanded. You never fully evolved into the person that you wanted to be, into the man that you wanted to be. And then what? You just have a miserable outlook and a miserable existence. And then in what if you get laid off, like in COVID, right? And after that, I mean, I know a couple of them, which is pretty sad to hear today. Some of these men that got furloughed and ultimately let go from their job, they've been applying, and no one wants to hire them, or there's no employment right now, and they're now causing. There's a couple of them from that I know personally are now dealing with depression, because they don't know what their next step is going to be, because they just kind of listen. I'm not saying, I mean, it could have been, it was a kind of like, if you have a job, be blessed. Be grateful. I mean, you're blessed, and be grateful that you have one, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people have been turned upside down. And again, that's no fault of their own. And a lot of these situations, like, maybe they were listening to the wrong stuff in their own mind, why they didn't save. And I talked in my prior podcast about saving money, and maybe they were listening to their wives and their kids, that they need these new things, they need these expensive shoes and all these kind of things, and that's what led to the where you are now. And mind you, COVID is the cause, but because you were not careful in whom you listen to, and you didn't tell your kids no, because you're used to a certain lifestyle, because you couldn't move up in the company as you wanted to, because you were afraid to, because everyone was telling you, your mom, your sister, were telling you that you shouldn't, and it's better to stay safe and play it safe and all that stuff, and you don't progress in that company, so you never could have gotten that extra bump in salary. So there's cause and effect in everything. And that's why when you listen to certain people, even though they mean well. But most people, when you express something through to them, you have to acknowledge, well, first you have to acknowledge that just how society and culture is. So when you ask someone something, you have to come at it with, I'm gonna take this information with such filter because this person might be hurt, this person might not know what they're talking about, this person might be not mean it but be malicious, be she might be envious or he might be envious again. And that's just a small sample, yeah, just a small example of what you could get. And there's tons more, there's tons more. When we allow people to go ahead and infiltrate our thoughts, and like I said, we don't know where they're coming from when they're answering the questions that we have. So when you add this filter to it, you have to go with what kind of makes sense. And even then you stop it there because you don't know. You have to fully vet someone and be confident that this person is not a BSer. They're gonna shoot it straight from the hip, not because they want to hurt you, but because they see the direction that you're gonna take if you take said actions. So the only way they could tell you straight up is be honest. Straight up, just be blunt, and they're gonna now. Do a lot of people don't have those kind of people, and that's why a lot of people don't like those kind of people, because they're party poopers, because they don't want to go with the flow, because they know what the ultimate outcome is. And there's a fine line to play within that, but that's what why it doesn't. And a lot of people don't have those kind of people around them because it puts them in check, and people don't want to be put in check. And that's what is evident, even though that is needed. So again, a cause and effect. We know that we should listen to someone that says, hey, don't go out drinking, you have a finals tomorrow, you have to go to work tomorrow, or whatever the reason is. That person becomes a party pooper. It's easier to just be like, screw it, let's just go out for a couple, and then next thing you know, you fucked off your whole night, you're hungover, and then you're taking the test. Not about, you could pass the test. I'm sure there's examples of people that have done partying and all that stuff, and then still pass the test, still go to work and do a great job. I'm certain. But again, we don't want someone to be there and nag you, as you would say, but it leads to huge digressions in our lives. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it, or detours in our life, because we listen to, I don't want to say wrong people. We just listen to people that we shouldn't be listening to. They might mean well, but they're coming from a place of fill in the blank, where it depends on what situation you're asking or interacting with this person. My thing is, when whatever it is that you're filling in the blank with, filter it. Know that this person is probably just as screwed up. One, the question that you're asking, or the same thing that's happening to you. This person is probably coming from a skewed place, and gonna give you an example or give you a suggestion that is just gonna. And I'm not saying it's gonna destroy you or anything like that, but it might lead to just more severe trauma or pain down the road. One of the first things that comes off in my head is, like, in life, right? And I just gave a couple of examples, when with moving up in a company or taking a new position, moving from jobs, and all that stuff. Now, some of the times you're forced into it. You get laid off, you get stuff like that. A lot of times, because we're scared, like I said in my prior example, where maybe a wife or a kid, they prevent you, or your mom or your dad, they say, no, mijo, don't take that job. What if you can't do it? What if you can't learn it quick enough, and then you lose it, then you don't have nothing? And what about your kids? What about your wife? And that fear, and they mean one, and they do it because obviously they're your family and they don't want to see you get hurt. And that's what family is meant for. And not just in this part. I mean, most of the time it is when we say in life, when you say be careful who you listen to in life. The family and friends are the ones that come in, to us. Sometimes strangers, sometimes, like I said, fill in the blank on that one as to whom that is. It could be a coworker at work. It could be, sometimes it could even be a supervisor, or a boss and stuff like that at work that is malicious or whatever. Or even, and I know I'm taking a negative tone to this, but also let's spin it to a positive aspect. Like, if you're careful who you listen to and you listen to the correct information, that the fact that you do that will, it's like taking a machete to weeds, like tall weeds that if you can't see or whatever, it's gonna start hacking them away. Is You're gonna have that nice sharp machete, which is listening to the right people, and you're gonna move through that field a whole lot more. So in that same spirit, if you listen to someone, like, let's say in that same example, where someone says, no, go for that promotion, don't worry, sweetheart, like, a female telling, like, us men, don't worry, we'll get through it, but I want you to go to be the best man that you can be. You have my support. I'm gonna try, I'll cut down on spending, I'll try to save us money, I'll do couponing, whatever. Or your friends, hey, do it, bro, don't worry, you're gonna be, that kind of action from people, and you listen to them, it could be a very powerful tool to propel you into the life you want, whatever you want, the experiences you want. And that's when, I know, we get caught up in a negative form of something, like, oh, be careful who you listen to. But what if we say, like, be careful who you listen to? Like, even in that tone right there, like, if you listen to the right people, that could lead you to fortune. It could lead you to advancement. It could lead you to the life that you deserve to live. So it's not always a negative tone to it, even though we tend to focus on it. But in being careful who we listen to, it's also being careful who's giving us those golden gems, the diamonds, that knowledge that's going to be like, if I apply this to my life, it might, propel me to a next level in myself. And even in that filter that I told you, when you're talking to people maybe not doing so well, but they mean well, trust me, how many times have you heard, oh, I give better advice than what I take? So a lot of people have amazing knowledge in their mind. They're just not disciplined enough to follow their own advice, and that's where that becomes so funny. Ha ha ha! I'm great at giving advice, but I'm horrible at taking my own advice. And I know to them it feels cute. For me, all I see is sociopath. There's an issue there, because that detachment isn't funny. Like, you're acknowledging the problem, and yet your solution is to just shrug it off and laugh at it, or laugh at it and then shrug it off. There's definitely a some kind of path in there, whether it be sociopath, psychopath, or whatever path you want to put on there. There's definitely a path there. But so even in that, when you put the filter on there, they might spill out some gems that might, be like, this person is really, really weird, but that really made sense. And you know it because it hits you in your soul, it hits you in your spirit. It hits you somewhere that only you know. I can't explain it to you because I don't want to say in your heart. It's in your, right above your rib cage. You know where it is. You know that feeling where, like, it got you. Like, it's truth. You really, really know, like they say now, there's no lies detected on whatever it was. Like, it was straight up. So that's when you have to understand, that's the filter. You might, all of the stuff might be just bouncing off of it or being stuck on the filter, but you want what's going to come through to be those little gems that they themselves know, don't use, but it's knowledge that they had, maybe because of their dad, maybe a brother, maybe a life experience that they had. And that coal of that, whatever, let's call it a trauma in this case, or success in some instance. Maybe they had something really interesting and successful in a positive light early on in their life, where when they told you, you grabbed it and then you applied it in whatever form it goes, and then it could be hugely productive. So just like with everything, like I said, I was doing the coal, and you put in enough pressure, you get that diamond. It's that same thing. You want to make sure you get the good stuff, but using it does. And I say that because even in these not bad people, but people that we should really be careful because their messages and their outlook is negative. They're hurt. They're in pain. They haven't dealt through certain things. They're not bad people, and it's not all are bad people, but you can't, the knowledge that they have is still knowledge. And because you're being cognizant of the filter and filtering out some of the BS, like I said, just because they've gone, like I said, and it doesn't have to be in a negative tone or be like evil, manipulative of people, but you have to just, acknowledge and say, okay, they're gonna probably BS me or sugarcoat it for me, but let me soak in, what they're telling me, and then let me see if there's anything useful. And if there isn't, that's when you use the old adage: if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. You say, oh, thank you very much, I'm gonna think about that. And that's it. You don't have to be rude and be like, "Oh, that's stupid" and all that stuff. So, when it comes to like listening, and be careful who you're listening to in life. Again, there's a ton of people really close, your best friend. I mean, I know some toxic girls that hang out with each other and are toxic times four, and they think it's okay. And yeah, be careful who you listen to. Those girls, I mean, they party, they're living it up, they're having a good old time, but the way they move around it, and that's because they chose really carefully whom they wanted to listen to, and all of them did, and that's the way they're stuck right now. And now they're entering into certain stages in their own lives, whether it be not in a positive light. I just don't want to keep on, putting like things down or anyone down, just in case. But yeah, like they listen to the wrong people in their life, their besties and all that stuff, where they get mad they haven't found a man or a good career yet. They're drinking, sleeping around, doing all this crazy stuff, and yet they have the audacity to ask the questions as to, hey, why doesn't anybody, why this, why that, why can't this. Yet they're not being careful who they're listening to, because the moment that one does get something, someone's there to sabotage, someone's there to throw shade, someone's there to throw some kind of, oh, he's locking you down, you can't even come kick it with us. And then they hit their ego, and then, oh, what is it's like that bros before hoes, but now these girls have something. I can't remember what the hell it was. Now I heard one from a female. It was pretty funny. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't know I was gonna go down this. Well, I did know I was gonna go down this rabbit hole. I didn't know I was gonna go down a detour and then use certain flashes of my memory as experiences. Even though I do try to I am coming from experiences. So just for anybody to say like, what? Yeah, definitely coming from experience, but I don't want to focus on any one or anything or any one idea or theory or process or whatever. It's like I said, I'm bringing out the broad brush to cover most that I think is important, but again, there's many. So anyways, so I just went through how in life it could be in anything, right? So we're gonna go into like the next thing that I think we should be careful to is our money, right? And some of this stuff could be, family and friends also. Maybe you have a little bit of money, you're good with savings. They find out you save like 15 grand, and next thing you know, they say, hey, I have a great business idea. All I need is $2,000, and you'll see, I could get you return, blah blah blah, and you go ahead and do it, or they'll tell you, hey, invest in this, invest in that. Now, for this aspect, I found that if you don't have any money, you might listen to a lot of a lot of people, but obviously you don't have the money anyway, so you're kind of just wasting time in my eyes. But so it's not as a big issue, or else it would be everywhere. I mean, you've heard scams where people listen to the wrong people and lost millions and stuff like that. But that's when you're in that kind of game. I mean, that is high risk, high reward. When you're in that level, it's almost common. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was almost common, but there's a high percentage of that happening, and we would faint if we were in that world. Obviously, not really, because we would, if we were in that world, we would be accustomed to it, and there would be a build up to it. Not in all cases, but most cases. But if you, the amount of money that's being won or lost in any given day or whatever, once you're in that level, it's you would we would have heart attacks. So it's not as, like I said, it doesn't affect the common people or people making, what is that, a middle class lifestyle. So but even then, you do hear it in every, economic status here in America. And why does this happen even to the small majority? No, I shouldn't say small, but just not an overwhelming. I mean, it is small. Shit, it is small. A small percentage of people that actually do take that. People don't invest money. People don't save money. People don't like pyramid schemes. People don't usually, aren't really that lackadaisical with their money, because one, they spend it all, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and that's kind of the way they govern their money. So this, obviously, it goes a little bit higher because you don't want to make bad investments. You don't want to, sink your money into one thing and then lose all your fortune. And in this instance, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't know something, don't do it. If someone tells you about investing, and you don't know, it could be AT&T. I don't care. If you don't know when you would buy a certain stock of AT&T and what it does, what the dividend is, or what this means and that means, and how it all works, don't even do it. Like, start going through certain channels, but it's still the same thing that I'm talking to now. You could go on YouTube and find like 7 or 8, or let's just say 10 to keep nice and let me get back on track. I had a little interruption here in my studio where I'm recording. So I think I was getting on, or I was at the point of talking about being careful who you listen to with money, just because, again, it doesn't really matter. It's mostly affects people with a lot of money, but even in that, like I would think I was saying that if you don't know anything about investing money, you shouldn't do it, and you shouldn't do anything if you're not comfortable with doing it. And even when you go in there and take the incentive to get knowledge out of anything, be careful. Don't go out and do anything. Try small stuff. Like the first time I wanted to save money, I wasn't familiar. I know it's easy for everybody to say, "Oh, you just don't spend anything, you save it," but it's hard if you don't have a method that you want to kind of do that's going to be interesting and fun and kind of keep you engaged. And two, if you developed a kind of financial moral where you're gonna say, hey, this is what my new, I'm gonna live within this means. This is my budget. This is what I'm going to try to accomplish. And once you have your foundation, or a dogma, not even a dogma, just something that you want to live your life by as far as like financial wise, then you could kind of start building on that. But it's just, the reason I say it is because when I started saving, again, I have a background in anything, and I don't even know what the hell savings was. I mean, my first savings account, I was pretty much right, into my 20s when I had a bank account. So when I started going on in the internet and YouTube and seeing how to save money, I tried a little bit here and there until I found one that was within my budget. I felt kind of comfortable too. I could kind of track it easy. And now with like social media apps, and I mean, not social media apps, with all these different apps now, you could sync up with, your account. It could save stuff from your thing, or you could link it up where it kind of budgets your finances. Kind of, it doesn't do it for you, just kind of, you put your expenses on there, and then it's kind of linked up to your bank account, but only because it's tracking nothing. It can't pull any money out or do anything. but it kind of tells you where some of the stuff is getting paid. The point being is that once you start going in there and you start using some of the tools out there in all money, again, the whole point is being careful who you listen to, because in one instance, if you do have a good salary, making good money, it could cost you a ton of money, but it could also make you a ton of money. And in the other aspect, when you don't have any money, one, they don't do anything with money anyways except buy a bunch of shit. And even then though, people end up using for like $100, $200 and something minimal, or hey, I have this little deal I want to make and I can get you so much, and it falls through. So given the way society is and just how everything's expensive, can we go around being not careful with money? I don't think so anymore. And there's a lot of people out there. I'm not talking bad about any life coach. I haven't even hit the life coach. I'm already on the money thing, but I'm just gonna put them on here, like these life coaches, these financial gurus and stuff like that. Again, not one specific person, but they're in it for a different reason. Once you get into a certain level of fame, money, status, YouTube following, whatever. Most of the ways that they got their money was because it's all individualized to them. But when you start going down a way, or not going down, but like evaluating the whole story from when they started to where they are now, you understand that the gap that we have, because we're only seeing these people as a finished product, we don't understand, and circumstances in our life might not be that way. Where a lot of people mess up is that they use that as an excuse. They use it as like, that's when you hear like, oh, well, you were brought up with a silver spoon, or you got brought up with all these advantages. And when you start using that, you kind of set yourself up for being careful whom you listen to. And like I said, these life coaches and money coaches, or money gurus. Once they're at a certain level, except for the life coaches, you could still find them. And even though a lot of people want to say they make a lot of money, some do, a good percentage do, but a lot of them are being paid through your corporation, through your property, to kind of lead, be that they have like a small office somewhere that, they have employee mandatory stuff to talk about, what's going on in your life, and are you feeling depressed, and are you feeling this, or what's going on with work, and blah, 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 blah. So they kind of have these life, coaches at some of these jobs. But anyways, so not many of them, but the ones you see on YouTube, the ones you see on social media that have a high following, and along with these financial gurus, and along with all the dating and relationship and breakup, experts and coaches and advisors or whatever, like all of them, once they reach a certain level, they're only doing it to get as many people to view their thing, to come to their channel, to choose them. And it's not really coming at you for anything other than generality, or kind of just speaking their story and thinking, hey, if listen to my story, and then let it inspire you to do great things. And we should, and that's a great thing, but that's where it stops, and that's where it should stop. Because we're not where they are. So when we see men that have this other, all these crazy things, or stuff that we like and want to have and stuff like that, if you just sit there and get, butthurt because you don't have it, you're just going to put yourself in a negative mindset, as opposed to saying, fine, I want that stuff. So then what do I have to do to achieve that and to get that stuff? And like I've said before, once you ask your mind the right questions, it wants to then answer those questions. It wants to answer those questions. It's gonna do it, but you have to ask it the right questions, so it answers those right questions, not the wrong questions, because you don't want that. The wrong questions are just gonna have you go down the wrong path. So once you hear this, yes, I'm not saying don't try it, don't do it, because again, that's how we're gonna learn if it fits for us, is if we try it. What I'm saying is, remember when I talked about, I talked about it before, the little break thing, that little feeling. A lot of people say your gut and all that stuff. When it hits you, you know in your soul, if you're dealing with life issues and you're feeling depression, and you're listening to someone on YouTube, and it hits home, it keeps on tugging and it feels, and you know that that what they're saying is you, and it feels correct and all that stuff, you go there, follow that, as opposed to saying, well, this person looks like they're happy, looks like they're being successful, looks like they have a great relationship, looks like they blah blah blah, whatever, again, fill in the blank. And then, later on, 2 or 3 years, you find out that they are lying, that they failed, they again, it could be with idolization, but it basically can be that, I guess, because we idolize the person, not the methods and stuff like that. So I'm not saying don't try it, but see what it works for you, and only you know. And like everything, everybody wants to do a one size fits all, and there is no such thing as a one size fits all. But you could try a bunch of stuff and then make that your own. Incorporate a bunch of little things. Maybe you do some from this person, and then in your money you do something with from this person, or from these few people, and then in your dating and relationship or in your marriage, you do you're listening to the right voices, and you're doing a little bit of this person, a little bit of hers, a little bit of his, a little bit of his, and you mold it into you because it's individual to you. And I'm not saying that that's not the intent of many of these people that do these things. It's not what it's said, and it's not what is being done. People are using this very literal, very forward. And I mentioned this before, especially going and dating and relationship, which is one of the other things that I wrote on here. These coaches and dating and relationship coaches and breakup coaches and hookup coaches and all that stuff. A lot of people are coming from an area of being not in a good place. It is being really aggressive, really I was gonna say macho driven. I guess macho driven, but it isn't. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I'm gonna come at from this point, or from a beta male, if you want to quote unquote beta male. Even though I think it was early on in my podcast, I talked about that. I hate those things. I think I know I've said it a few times. It's about positive and negative energy. But a lot of these dating coaches and relationship coaches and breakup coaches and hookup coaches are doing this for money, doing this for a grab, doing this for other reasons. It might work for them because they have certain characteristics. Might have certain tools. They might have certain income. They might just be gorgeous. They might have certain things. So when they say this stuff, it's coming because of their success, but their success is not going to be translatable for you. And because we're not being careful who you listen to, because you hear someone talking about, oh, how could I put it without being too focused on someone? Like if they tell you, like, oh, we sleep with them on the first night, and he might be able to sleep with women on the first night because what X reasons or whatever, but you keep on striking out because you're following this advice, and you might be pushing away because you're not being original and authentic, and you're just saying, well, if he said it, I'm gonna do it because I want that same result. Yet you don't understand that there's hidden variables in there. There's other factors that he's able to say this with confidence because in his world that is a reality, but in your world it's not a reality. Maybe because you haven't set the boundaries for that reality to actually exist. And that's when it becomes a problem, when you have, especially in the dating and breakup and relationship dating coaches, they themselves don't know what they're doing or they're talking about. Them themselves are hurt. Them themselves haven't healed. They haven't gone through the motions themselves. And again, we're all great at giving advice, and I get that. And that's why I started off, let's use the filter when we listen to people like this, because again, in life, in money, in relationships, dating, in every other aspect, just put in anything you want in there. You have to be careful who you listen to. And again, I know I'm focusing on a negative side of all this, but there's definitely positive. There's people that are great at dating, great at relationships, great at dealing with breakups, and come at it from a positive, healthy, whatever, mindset. But only you know what is from you. But when you listen to those right people, you get over the breakup quicker. You go on to the next relationship in a healthy manner, and you end up finding the girl that's going to be there for the next 10, 15 years, or whatever is your goal for that. And you listen to the right people, and you set these groundworks for a healthy relationship, for a healthy financial lifestyle, for a lifestyle that you're proud of, and that that you worked hard for, but that only happens if we're careful who we listen to. If we're always mindful of when someone's talking to us, that we say, okay, because we never want to be disrespectful. If it's someone that you can't value their opinion, they're not honest, they're dishonest, whether it be in life and money and dating and relationships, whatever. Again, you're gonna just listen because you're polite. You end it and you move on. But when you do know, if you don't know this person, and you should never judge anyone, but you want to be mindful of your group or what's around you. You're gonna listen to these people, and you have to start, with your standards and boundaries and etc. What we've talked about already in many podcasts, and I'll continue to bring it up. When you start doing that, it starts then that those become your filters, where you're meeting people, and they have to go through all these. They have to come out the other side. Because why? Because it's not gonna move. This is what it is, and you have to move through it, and it's gonna eliminate a bunch of people, because they're not gonna be willing. They're gonna know that you're gonna call them out on their bullshit. They know right when they're telling you the lies, or whatever they think. Oh, you should invest in this. Like, they know that that, one, they wouldn't do it. Two, they just wanna bloat about themselves or whatever. If this person's saying, oh, I only date tens, odds are is that he doesn't. Odds are is that he's probably dating some girls, some normal girls that you would be dating. And if you really found out, you'd be like, what? That's crazy. That isn't like a 10. That looks like my ex-girlfriend or something like that. And that's when you start realizing that, hey, in my experience, so some people could be going, and let's say even that in that experience, the dude is telling me 10, 10, 10, 10, 10s. He's only going out with 10s, right? Dimes. And yet I understand his message, because like I said, people could give great advice even though they don't follow it. So that's why we have this abundant, all these people coming out and trying to help, which is great. Again, it's a good thing that a lot of these people are coming. He could be, and I could find out, oh, look at his this girl that he's talking about, and they're like a 6 and a 7. He could be throwing out some gems, and it could be like, that does sound right. And you know why it does sound right? Because I've implemented a little bit, and actually, you know what? That dude's saying, what he's saying is true. I did this, I did that, I did this, and I got the same, response that he said. He might not be getting the girls because he might have his own limitations. He might have his own stuff that in his eyes, now those are his 10s, but for you, you'd be like, what? That doesn't. So a lot of people, what would they do normally? They would detach, but you'd be like, okay, the method still sounds the same. I'm getting dimes. I'm getting girls that I'm attracted to, that I'm being turned on. So the method works. And just because this guy might not be 100% legit, not running 100% true to what he's actually spilling, doesn't negate anything that he's doing. And I know people are saying, oh, you're playing both sides of the fence. No, it's because, again, it wouldn't be so common if people wouldn't say, hey, I'm great at giving advice, but I'm horrible at taking it. That is almost all. That's a high majority. A lot of people know exactly what to do, but we don't do it. And everyone, it's the same thing. Like, I know when people, I know you're not stupid. Like, I know you're not dumb. What? I know you're not dumb. People know what's right, what's wrong. People know when they're doing shit. People know when they're bullshitting. People know when they're getting bullshitted at, when you're like throwing them. I'm not saying all the time, but goddamn, it's gonna be like 95%. Because I refuse to believe that more than 5% of the population is naive, physically naive, like mentally naive. 95% plays stupid. So I hope you guys found some, this information useful. Sorry for the break in the middle. I had a little interruption here in the studio, but be careful who you listen to. It destroys man. It detours us. It takes us, waste years of our life. It takes, toll on our lives with stress, with gray hairs. It ages us. So it could ruin us financially. It could leave us without friends. So be careful who you listen to, and always follow who you are. That vision of what man you want to be. That vision of what you're trying to achieve. Keep that in that, and keep all the focus on that, and let all this other stuff, when people are telling you and this and that, take it, but don't lose sight of it. Don't lose sight of what you've already established. I'm going to do this, and that's what I'm going to do. And stay firm, stay on that path, and just, again, always be wary of what people tell you. You don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know what they've experienced. But if it resonates with you, then use it. Use it to make you better. But don't use it in their way, but use it in the way that will benefit you. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share the channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.